But by the time I got to Wichita, I was up in third place. Now, I should not have been there because I was not that fast. There was four airplanes that had a new engine, air-cooled radial, the Warner engine. And it was, at that time, I think 110 horse. We had 90. And it was just enough, and also in a much smaller airplane, a new production airplane. So those four should have been the leaders, and they usually were. But at Wichita, one of them must have went astray on his navigation a little bit. And I probably, that particular one was very direct. So I was up third. I just got up to almost altitude I want to fly at, around 5,000 feet. And all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. The engines are popping, fussing around like crazy. And boy, if I can just stay in the air, you know, so if I go down, all this time is accounted against me and probably can't get any parts quick, you know, I might as well go home. And so I did get in, but it was a pretty sick engine. And but I was lucky and got a cylinder changed that night, new piston. It did not go through into the case, eh? The piston stayed intact. And so next morning it was going. And but I was back, I think, back to 12th place. Yes, because I was flying so slow from Oklahoma City down. But I did go down. That, I think that set me back. When I got into Texas, trying to make up time from, I think it was Midland, I believe, to El Paso, there was the Rio Grande takes a big curve, and most of them went down from, I'd have to look at a map, be sure of the towns, and follow the highway down and back up, which probably run 50 miles more. And I thought, well, take a chance and go across. Sure enough, it didn't pay off to take that chance. And I noticed the temperature started doing this. Well, from the little experience I had, you know, when it starts fluctuating, it means that you're losing water, you know, it's getting low. And all through most of Texas, that's grazing land, you'll find windmills with big tanks. All these ranches are thousands of acres. And have you been down Texas?
Not to stay, no.
Well, there's sagebrush. Its average is about the height of this ceiling here, but it gets as big as your arm or a little better on the bottom. It's pretty hard wood, and in fact, it gets more than that really. And around those windmills, you know, quite often the cattle tend to congregate there. Now, when it's cooler, they'll move away from it a little bit more when the grazing is better. But when it's real hot, they stay just far enough away to stay in the shade, but so they can get a drink. And so there is speed down at the point, and I circled a couple of times trying to figure out what's the best way of getting in there, and just as close as you possibly can. So, but be sure to stop before you get to the tank. The windmills, eh? And so I did get some tearing up of the bottom wing. It's a biplane, and which of course is going to make it worse for takeoff again because you lose some lift. See? Top of it was okay, did not come through, but it was a lot of bottom was tore up. Excuse me. Well, checked right away and found out it was I knew I had a water leak, but I had to get the hole plugged up first, so didn't have anything in hand right there, but there's a hell of a lot of sagebrush around there. So I got a jackknife out and started to whittle. And of course this fitting was threaded in there, and so I made did whittling to make it so it would just start going in, and then as you kept turning it, it would tighten up tight, and didn't leak. See? And I figured that for that long a time, that wood would just swell up with all the hot water, and that would at least hold, at least until you got someplace where it could dry out, and it sure couldn't dry out there. So it might have went on for months if you wanted to leave it there, but at least it's got to be into El Paso. Well, now, of course, when I was ready to fly, how can I get out of here? I got in with some damage, but not real bad. But remember, in takeoff, you start out where it isn't much, but you get into higher and higher sagebrush, see? So it's a little question whether we'll even make it. And so I walked over quite a bit, still bearing in mind the time was being counted up against me, and took a crack at it and made it. But I did do a lot more damage to the airplane. So that night we had to work on the airplane instead of the engine. And we had to do a lot of fabric work, replace the lower wing fabric, and in other words, patching material. And but we also had some repairing to do on the spars, because it actually put in some pretty good nicks in there. So we put in reinforcing plywood over the spars at that point. So when I got through there, of course, I dropped back pretty far. And I made some of that up before I got in at L.A., and I'd have to check the records and be real sure what it was, but it was somewhere probably between the third and first half, I would think, that I got it finished up as, which I didn't think was too bad with the problem I had.